Have you ever got that feeling that life is this giant moving escalator and somehow you're the only one running up the wrong way? Like no matter how fast you go, no matter how much effort you put in, you're just not getting there you think you're supposed to be. I've been thinking about this a lot, and when I talk about it on my social media platforms, most of the people feel the same. I think there's a huge part of our society that has the same thought, but we actually don't talk about it, so we feel we're the only ones feeling behind in life. And what's even shocking, that everyone's version of feeling behind in life is not identical to each other. And that should be a dead giveaway that it's all made up. I used to believe that my sense of urgency, my drive to keep pushing forward was a good thing. And in some ways it has been. It has helped me chase after things with everything I've got. But I've also noticed something about myself. I hardly let myself feel like I have got what I wanted. Because there is always something else. Some next step, some new challenges to take on. I felt it the other day while I was talking to someone I know for years. We were catching up and he was telling me about how he felt stuck in life, like he was not doing enough. This guy has done incredible things. Started his own thing from scratch, built something people actually found as an add-on to their lives. But in his mind, he was still behind. I asked him behind what? And he just laughed, like he didn't know what to say. But he still felt it anyway. And that's a big problem, isn't it? This idea that we all are a part of some invisible race with some invisible checkpoints, and we never stop to ask who even set the finish line. I think a lot of this feeling comes from the way we consume people's lives now. Someone launches a business and we see the highlight reel, not the nights they spent doubting every decision. Someone buys a house, we see the keys in their hands, not the days and nights, even decades, they spent being anxious about whether they would ever be able to afford it. And if we are being real, we contributed too. Nobody wants to post their worst days. I know I don't, despite the fact that I'm being authentic and transparent most of the times. It just, I choose what I want to show and what I want to hide. If you would take a look at my social media timeline, you would think my life was a constant space of amazing moments, except for a few. And I'm not pretending. That stuff is real, but it's not the whole canvas. The truth is, I have had nights where I have questioned everything. Days where I felt like I was just spinning my wheels while everyone else was moving forward. And the worst part is, I know I'm not actually behind. But that feeling, it doesn't care about logic. I think part of the problem is that we have inherited these outdated ideas of what success is supposed to look like. It's like there is one set path: study, work hard, get the house, get the promotion, and retire comfortably. And sure, that worked for a different time, but the world is not the same anymore. People are building entire careers from their phones. Some of the biggest companies in the world did not exist 20 years ago. The landscape has changed, but our expectations have not caught up. I saw this post recently about a guy who spent decades in one industry before switching to something completely different, and that too in his 50s, and now he's too successful. It made me think how many people out there are stressed because they think they are too late, when in reality the timeline they are using is off the subject. And speaking of time, I had another conversation that stuck with me. A colleague of mine, someone who by all accounts is wildly successful, built a company, made an impact, told me the same thing. I still feel like I have a lot to do. That can be perceived positively and negatively both. But if someone who I think society can consider successful, someone who has achieved the notion of made it still feels like they have not done enough. What does that say? That maybe this feeling is not something we can overshadow. Maybe it's just a part of the deal. And if that's the case, then what are we chasing? Maybe instead of focusing so much on what's next, we start paying attention to what's now. Maybe instead of trying to meet someone else's expectation, we start setting our own. I was reading about this study the other day, how people who associate their self-worth on external achievements are at a higher risk of anxiety and burnout. And it does sound logical. If your sense of value comes from things that are always moving, money, status, recognition, you will always feel like you are falling short because there is no end to that chase. But what if we shifted that? What if we started valuing things that are not so fragile, not so weak, like integrity, kindness, the ability to actually enjoy our own company? I think we need to redefine what enough looks like, and not based on some outdated belief, but based on what actually makes sense for us. Maybe your version of success is not about climbing a corporate ladder, but about having time to work on something you love. Maybe it's not about earning a certain amount, but about creating something meaningful. Maybe it's not about being ahead all the time, but about actually enjoying your existing stage of life. There is a concept in psychology called arrival fallacy. It is this idea that we think once we achieve a certain thing, we will feel fulfilled. But what happens? We get there and the feeling does not last. We move the goalpost and the cycle continues. So if you have been feeling behind, ask yourself, behind what? Who made the rules? And the most importantly, do they even apply to you? Because at the end of the day, the only timeline that matters is the one that lets you breathe. The one that lets you wake up without feeling like you are in a race you never signed up for. If you're still thinking about it, good. It means you're still in the game, still learning, still moving forward, but on your own terms. Because maybe the real question is not, am I behind? But what if I'm exactly who I'm meant to be? And what if that's enough?